Yes, we see the players, they're still smiling, the hands are shaken, and e4 is played, and we have a king's pawn game and an Italian.
Wow, yeah, because Dubov is famous for going for the bishop e7 setup. Anish says, okay, go for it please, I'm happy with it.
The last move was the queenside rook pawn going forward. Now they're having even more moves that come onto our screens. And this structure reminds me of the bishop's opening, but instead of a knight capturing the bishop, it was the bishop trading. White has this clamp in the center.
Wow, it's insane action, yeah, that the players are blitzing it out in bullet mode. I feel like I should be happy with white with this lovely bishop on c1 against black's bishop on e7. On the other hand, Dubov's strategy is to set up a very solid position and then just rely on his quick play and see how is white at all breaking through.
And it's black who decides to strike on the kingside with the move f5. It's a double-edged move. That rook on a3, if it can successfully swing on over to g3, we could be looking at an attack for white. But with that rook capturing the f5 pawn, maybe it's an attack for black. Both sides have their chances here, and I will say that that pawn on d5 could be a little bit tender at some moment, so you need to keep your eyes open.
Yes, and the point being that, of course, white can protect that pawn with c4. However, then we see the main idea of black. Black has already set up a fortress position. Yeah, c4 played. Sooner or later you had to protect that pawn. The knight usually should be transferred to e4. That would be the ideal square, but then suddenly black has bishop g5, trading the bad bishop. So it does look like Dubov knew what he was doing.
Bad bishops defend good pawns. Black's pawn structure is super healthy because the pawn chain isn't strong as its base pawn, and the pawn on c7 almost impossible to get to in this position. So I love the setup from Dubov, and he seems very comfortable, but he is lacking in space, Peter. That's the one bit of bad news for him, and that's when he regroups and he reroutes his knight over to g6 very likely.
Yeah, well, Anish actually played the move g3, indicating that he wants to go king g2. He knows anyway I'm gonna transfer that knight, but against Daniil Dubov, weakening your king side, knight h7, rook af8 to follow. Now bishop g5 will happen after knight d2.
The knight still will get to e4, but it does seem likely that the minor pieces will trade. And the pawn on a4, let's not forget about that. The queen on d7 doesn't just aim to the king side, it aims at the pawn a4. And Anish showed up with the pawn on e3, the engine is not happy about white's position.
Yeah, usually I'm mentioning that I'm loving that knight on e4, but this knight is not there forever. Black is very comfortably able to change that, to trade that with knight f6, maybe even first include a move like queen f5, but then white has queen g4 trading queens. Okay, that's a good resource for white.
White is really hanging on, but barely. It does not look like fun for Anish Giri because black controls the only open file. The f file has both black rooks on it, and we see queen f5 played. I don't see a move besides queen g4. If you move your knight away to c3, that black knight comes into g5, and that looks problematic. So queen g4, I think what Dubov will do, Peter, is trade queens and then play knight g5 to give himself the f2 square, or is that not exactly working out the way I want?
No, I think it works out to perfection because after knight g5 you will have the rook f2 intermezzo move. That's the key, and then you get you infiltrate with the rooks and you get the upper hand.
And that's what has given Anish Giri pause. He is in huge trouble right now. He can't move his knight away. I think he'll get checkmated. The black knight comes into g5. You might have to play g4 just to protect your h3 pawn, and then queen f2 check anyway. Your knight is going to be in trouble. The second rank is black's for the taking. This looks ugly.
Wow. And here we see, and look at Dubov's clock situation. He has basically blitzed out all his moves. Yeah, this is his strategy. Finally, there was nothing else. Anish has to go for this horrible endgame.
But you know what's the worst part about it is he went down this horrible endgame and took a lot of time just to play these moves. So knight g5 right now. This should allow black to intermezzo, and then the black rook will be free to run around the second ring. Wait a second, he goes knight f6.
Wow, that's a surprise, and I think Anish is kind of relieved. On the other hand, it's still unpleasant, but it's much better than before.
Yeah, rook f1 loses for white, I'm pretty sure. So they're trying to trade off all the rooks because of your bad pawn structure, those double isolated g-pawns. You can't get away with rook f1, and that's why he sides up rook e2. He's covering all the squares. Peter, it's an open file. but you can't easily pile up more pressure on this g4 pawn.
Yeah, it looks very ugly. However, black has all these ideas like going e4, rook f3, eventually breaking with h5, getting access to the weak pawn on g3. It's a horrible position.
Great point about h5, because I was wondering what's the actual threat of rook f3. h5 is a huge threat trying to get after the g3 pawn. So is king h4 the move here for white, stopping h5 with the king?
Yeah, maybe, but yeah, Anish plays the move king h4 out of desperation. There was no other move to be played. Down to 29 seconds, almost 2 minutes. What an incredible performance by Dubov, just playing so quickly, putting pressure on the clock.
And he went king h7, so maybe h5 is still in the air. And so for Anish, he grabs his rook, plays rook to g1. That's a defensive move. White really wanted to play like b4 and get some activity for his rooks, but white is sitting so passively here.
Yes, white is completely passive. I'm expecting some rook g5, king g6, eventually h6, h5 break. I also would love to put that pawn on e4 just in case, making sure that I fix everything.
I just don't see a plan for white. I think white is playing like rook a1, rook g1, rook, back and forth on a yo-yo string here, and there's no other plan.
Yeah, the big question is, will Dubov be able to find the breakthrough? Anish is hoping that the answer is no, and Dubov says, no way, I can't break here. Yeah, rook g5 I think played.
These types of positions are so frustrating because black is clearly better, seemingly on the verge of winning, and yet the breakthrough not so obvious. And while rook g5 and then rook back to f6, it looks like was black's latest move. Is there some kind of king g6, pawn h5 idea?
Yeah, that was my idea, but actually Dubov just wants to go after the g4 pawn systematically.
So, on one hand, you've gained material, that's good for black. But the downside of all of this play is that now white suddenly has ideas. In fact, if we speed up to where the players are, the pawn on g4 has been captured. Now rook takes b4 for white, a5 at some point. Pawns are getting traded off. It's bad for white, that's clear. But maybe there's some hope.
Yeah, the moves came in bunches. From being behind, suddenly jumped ahead. Apologies to everyone. Unfortunately, it's out of our control.
But this game may no longer be completely out of Anish Giri's control because he should make this move. In fact, I see it on the camera. He's played a5, b takes a5, rook b7. So if we can speed up here, this black rook has gone to g4, rook takes c7, rook takes h4 check. I know we're just trying to catch up as best we can, and there was a capture on rook g4 check was thrown in and then taken on e4. So lots of liquidation happening. I'm sure the moves will come in more spurts, but the point is that there has been simplification here, and white is trying to hold on by trading off as many pawns as possible.
But he's 2 points behind. Two pawns behind. This is not gonna be easy. But what is the cleanest way for black? Because we know that rook end games are completely crazy. Even sometimes being 2 pawns down, you can still hope for a miracle.
And I think we just saw Anish in the camera. He stole a pawn. So maybe let's just zoom into the players because the board continues. Well, now it's catching up as soon as I zoom the players. But there are these split pawns at advantage for black, and white lost his pawn in the process. So Anish Giri down 2 pawns now.
Yes, this should be lost, but okay. The game is still on. As long as you can fight, you still feel that you might have chances. They are waiting for the moves to appear. Maybe let's just zoom in. We will be losing all the action like this to zoom in.
And we see here the players, they are going at it. Black has pushed the pawn all the way down to a3. Anish using his rook to cut off the black king, but I don't think that's going to pan out for him.
Yeah, not at all. King h5, g5, g4, king h4, and then you're gonna give a check on the second rank and it's game over.
And for Daniil Dubov, I mean, he had so much time in this game. It felt like he wasn't even thinking, just playing on instinct, but his instinct was more or less perfect throughout most of this contest.
Yeah, but I'm surprised. Why is he not satisfied with... Okay, he gives the check, king g3. pushes
A2.
a2 and then the king walks over to b5. Very systematic approach.
And now it's simple, and he's hovering over his g-pawn. The white rook can't take it, and instead he just brings his king on over. And that's what you were calling for, Peter. And even if white takes the king side, he's
Rook b4 check.
Oh,
Wow.
oh
And
no.
Anish has this rook b5 check. We're gonna see queen versus rook.
Did you see Anish look at him? He's like, do you really know how to win this game? And this is not that easy to perform without so much time on your clock.
Yeah, but Dubov has enough, and of course there is checkmate.
Oh, checkmate on h1. Anish, he was in a lost position regardless, but